Bonjour, I'm Pierre from French Moments, and in this video I'll take you for a walk in the village of Les Baux-de-Provence. We'll also explore the castle at the top of the village. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It really supports the channel and helps us bring more amazing content to you. Also, if you haven't already, click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest videos. Let's begin our tour of Les Baux-de-Provence from the north entrance of the village. Here we are on the Esplanade Charles de Gaulle, which leads to the main entrance of the village from the car parks. The rampart against which the buildings were constructed was breached in the second half of the 19th century to allow for the opening of the current town entrance. This entrance is known as the Porte Mage. On the right is the Maison du Roi. Until the French Revolution, the town of Les Baux-de-Provence was the capital of a rural and feudal jurisdiction. The seat was long situated in this building, constructed in 1499. Justice was notably administered here in the name of the sovereign. Today the Maison du Roi houses the tourist office. We walk along the Rue Porte Mage. Let's turn right into this lane to arrive at the Place Louis Joux. Here's the view over the valley of the Vallon de la Fontaine, and in front of us is the old guardhouse from the 17th century. Let's backtrack to the main street. The guardhouse now contains the Santon Museum. There you can admire Neapolitan figurines from the 17th and 18th centuries, Church Santon from the 19th, and the traditional Provençal nativity scene. We walk along the Grand Rue Frédéric Mistral, which is lined with many shops for tourists. Here's the Renaissance-style Hotel Jean de Brion. This private mansion was completely restored by Louis Joux, a painter, engraver and typographer of Spanish origin who decided to settle here in 1939. After the death of Louis Joux, the mansion houses the Louis Joux Foundation. In July 2021, the foundation set up on the ground floor L'Atelier du Livre, renowned for the quality of its manuscript, archive and precious book restorations. On the first floor is Louis Joux's library, comprising 5,000 volumes from the 16th to the 19th centuries, including engravings by Dürer and Goya. You see the flags on the left announcing the town hall building. It is also the Hôtel de Manville, the most beautiful Renaissance private mansion in Les Baux-de-Provence. The residence was built in 1571 by de Manville, a wealthy Protestant family. Let's go inside to admire the old inner courtyard with Renaissance porticos. Alright, let's continue the tour. In front of us are the ruins of a significant residence from 1571, the Logis de Brisson-Père, of which only the remnants of a monumental Renaissance window remain. This window bears the Calvinist inscription Post tenebras lux, meaning after the darkness, light. Now let's take a ride to the Rue des Fours. The building on the left is the Hôtel de Porcelet. It's a 16th century residence with an original facade and elegant mullioned windows. It houses the Yves Brailler Museum, where paintings by the figurative artists dedicated to Spain, Italy and Morocco are displayed. We've now arrived at the church square, Place Saint-Vincent. Here is the 17th century chapel of the White Penitents, and there is a magnificent view over the valley. In front of us, the St. Vincent Church dates back to the 12th century. If you can visit the interior, you'll see that the church is partly carved into the rock. Let's go back to the Rue des Fours. But instead of returning to the Grand Rue, let's go down the Rue de la Calade on the left. It's getting late in the afternoon and there are fewer visitors, especially on this picturesque street, which is lined with souvenir shops. The street leads to the fortified gates of Porte Aiguière and to the Place Louis-Joux where we were earlier. As for us, we'll return to the Grand Rue by taking the Rue de la Lose on the right. It's a small passageway that tourists heading to the castle from the lower part of the village don't know well because it's a bit out of the way. Here we are again in front of the town hall and the Renaissance windows of Poste Ténébras Luxe. Let's take a left onto the Rue des Fours and then right onto the Rue du Château. To satisfy our curiosity, let's follow this street for a few meters. It's the Rue de l'Orme, a very picturesque narrow street. Let's continue on the Rue du Trancat to reach the entrance of the castle. As you can see, the street has been carved into the rock. There we're not far from the castle. This is the old building that houses the castle's bookshop and shop. On the left is the Saint Blaise Chapel, an old Romanesque chapel raised by the Corporation of Weavers and Wool Carders in the 12th century. Now I'll take you to visit the castle of Les Baux. Once past the ticket office, we begin our visit with the gardens of Quiqueron. This is a new garden nestled within the walls of the village's ancient arena and at the foot of the ruins of the 16th century charity hospital. The garden draws inspiration from medieval garden principles, which are full of symbols and partitioned into different spaces, each offering a unique atmosphere. It features plants and shrubs typical of the Provençal garrigue, thyme, rosemary, and orchid fruits. Reconstructions of medieval siege engines are displayed on the site. Here's the trebuchet. On certain days, these machines perform shooting demonstrations with real projectiles. Here's the battering ram, or bélier in French. Let's look at the view over the Vallon d'Entreconques. The location of the Baux Plateau, naturally perched and secluded, has always provided its inhabitants with a dual advantage. First, the ability to observe the surroundings, and second, to protect themselves. This likely explains why it has been occupied since the ancient times and almost continuously to the present day. The earliest known texts from the 10th century speak of Balsium Castrum, or the castle of Balsio. They mention a lord, Ponce de Young, whose descendants adopted the name of Les Baux as their surname. As one can easily see today, the 13th century castle takes advantage of the natural rock formation and supports the other buildings of the castle. The extraordinary site of Les Baux de Provence is situated on a spur 700 meters long and 200 meters wide, bordered by two steep ravines. The word Baux comes from the Provençal Beauce, meaning a steep rock. The village gave its name to bauxite, an aluminium mineral first discovered and mined here in 1822. Its extraction ceased in 1990. Let's go up to the Sarrazin Tower via the stairs. On one side, a view of the village of Les Baux, and on the other, the beautiful Vallon d'Entreconques and the Alpilles. On the horizon, you can even see the Montagne Sainte-Victoire, the famous mountain near Aix-en-Provence. Let's climb a few more steps to reach the top of the Sarrazin Tower. Look at the magnificent view. The site was governed by a family the poet Mistral called a race of eagles, never vassals. The lords of Les Baux claimed descent from the Magi Balthazar. From the 11th century, they were among the most powerful feudal lords in the south of France. From 1145 to 1162, they waged war against the House of Barcelona, disputing its right over Provence. However, their efforts were in vain as they had to submit after being besieged in their fiefdom. The lords of Les Baux became, for some, princes of Orange, viscounts of Marseille, and even counts of Avellino and dukes of Andrea in Italy, having followed the expedition of the princes of Anjou to southern Italy. Here are the remains of the castle chapel. Stories tell of courts of love in Les Baux, with troubadours serenading the county's most beautiful women with their poetry. We are now inside the keep. And we're going to head towards the staircase that leads to the top. So the panel indicates that caution is needed because access to the keep is difficult. Indeed, even in dry weather, I found the stones to be very slippery. Well, I'm going to attempt the climb, camera in hand. I advise against going up if you suffer from vertigo. The steps are very steep. Now we're walking along the cliffside. Both romantics and visitors are drawn by accounts of the fierce actions of the lords of Les Baux, especially the 15th century Raymond of Turenne, who acted like an outlaw. This lord of the place was related to two popes of Avignon. He was nicknamed Le Fléau de Provence, or the Scourge of Provence. Raymond de Turenne's favorite pastime was to force prisoners to leap into the void from the top of the castle of Les Baux. Their hesitations and anguish amused him greatly. Many were undoubtedly relieved by his death in 1413 at the age of 61. No one knows where or how he died, and it's also unknown where he was buried. In 1481, the barony of Les Baux and Provence were annexed to the Kingdom of France. The barony revolted in 1483, and then King Louis XI of France ordered the fortress to be dismantled. And here we are at the top of the keep, from where we dominate the entire region. It's one of the most beautiful panoramas in Provence. Alright, it's time to descend. We still have one more castle tower to climb, the Paravel Tower. From 1528, the Constable Anne de Montmorency, who held Les Baux, undertook significant restorations, and the village again experienced a prosperous period. However, Les Baux became a Protestant stronghold under the family of Mainville, who administered the barony for the crown of France. In 1631, the fortress was again in the hands of the rebels. The royal decision to abolish the Parliament of Provence the previous year provoked a revolt in Aix-en-Provence. Some rebels fled and took refuge in Les Baux. The town was besieged by the troops of Richelieu in 1632. Following these battles, the fortress was again dismantled, but this time the castle did not rise from its ruins. Not only did the inhabitants see their fief reduced to ruins, but they also had to pay a heavy fine and demolition costs. In 1642, the lordship of Les Baux was given by Louis XIII to Hercule Grimaldi as a thank you for his policy favoring the crown of France. He passed on the title of Marquis des Baux to his descendants, of whom Prince Albert of Monaco is the current holder. This explains why there is a Place Prince Régnier III on the site of the Poste Ténébras Lux that we saw earlier. Now it's time for the Paravel Tower. It's not as tall as the other towers, but its stairs are even steeper and more slippery. There's a beautiful view of the village, and just below the parade ground for medieval demonstrations and the archery and crossbow shooting area. Here's a superb overview of the castle. And there the Val d'Enfer, the Valley of Hell. Alright, let's go down, being careful not to slip. The next stop on our tour is where the medieval siege engines are located. We pass under the Paravel Tower. Here's the archery and crossbow shooting area. And here we are on the terrace of the medieval siege engines, with a beautiful overview of the castle. The castle of Les Baux-de-Provence is the only site in the south of France with functioning siege machines. These faithful reconstructions of full-size machines fire real projectiles, allowing us to relive the atmosphere of a medieval siege. We are almost at the end of our visit to the castle, but before heading back to the exit, we're going to discover the cave dwellings on the right. These houses bear witness to the ingenuity of the inhabitants of Les Baux, who used the stone to make their homes more functional. You can take the time to look for clues like shelves molded into the wall, fireplaces fitted into the thickness of the rock, or handles for hanging equipment and drying ham. The inhabitants had a superb view of the village. The exit is at the end of the garden. We're walking along the site of the old Quiqueran Hospital, built in the 16th century to house the poor and the sick. It was closed in 1787 and transferred to the Mossane Hospital, which still houses its archives today. Here we are at the end of our visit to the castle. Let's continue our exploration of Les Baux-de-Provence with a visit to the Castle Esplanade, which is well worth the detour. I visited in the late afternoon, and as I reached the Esplanade, the sun is setting on the horizon. We're going to have some superb views of the site and its surroundings. See this sloping paved area? It's an impluvium, used to collect rainwater to supply the village. Let's continue to the next stage of our discovery of the Esplanade. Here's the old windmill dating back to 1652. 3 windmills operated on the prow of the rocky spur. Now let's head towards the front of the rocky spur. The sunset is magnificent to the naked eye, but the camera doesn't capture its beauty as it is. Here's the view towards the west. We can see the region of Arles and the Camargue. In the distance, the plain of Crau, the Étang de Berre, and the mountains in front of Marseille. Here's the Charlun-Rieu monument in memory of the Provençal language poet. In front of us stand the ruins of the castle. Let's walk toward the edge of the cliff on the right to admire the Alpilles mountain range better. We have a fantastic view of the plain of Les Baux, also called the Vallon d'Entreconques, a real garden with olive groves and vineyards. Okay, let's head back to the village, passing once again in front of the castle entrance. In front of us stands the Hôtel de la Tour de Braux. This private mansion is the former Hôtel de Glandevès, dating from the late 14th century. By donation from King René in the 15th century, it became the property of the powerful de la Tour de Braux family. Inside are two models showing the state of the castle of Les Baux-de-Provence in the 13th century and during the Renaissance. As you've understood, strolling through the streets of Les Baux constitutes a real delight, at least when crowds and tourist shops do not overrun them. Les Baux is the leading tourist destination in France, renowned for contributing to romantic allure of Provence. The village is visited annually by 1.5 million tourists. This is considerable, especially knowing that the commune has just under 300 inhabitants, with only 22 permanent residents in the old Perche village. Moreover, in the Middle Ages, it had up to 6,000 inhabitants, making it one of the largest towns in the region. Les Baux-de-Provence has been awarded the title of Most Beautiful Village of France. Les Plus Beaux Villages de France is a French association and a certification mark established in 1982 that encompasses a network of more than 176 villages. Les Baux-de-Provence is the only village in the Bouches-du-Rhône department enjoying this prestigious title. Provence boasts 22 villages from the network, including Lourmarin, Roussillon, and Gordes. If you're watching this on YouTube and you've been to Les Baux-de-Provence and the Alpilles, I'd love to hear about your visit. Drop a comment below and tell us what you loved about it. And here we are at the end of our discovery tour. Thank you for watching this video. It was a real pleasure to bring you along on my discovery walk in the village and castle of Les Baux-de-Provence. I'll see you soon for other adventures. À bientôt!